Hello Team FD and welcome back to Winners and Losers, the show where we look at the highs and the lows from the Premier League game week just past. Joining me, it's becoming a habit now, it's Zach Gelab, fresh out the shower, and Joseph Tomlinson as ever. Starting with you, Zach, how was your weekend? Bit of toothache, mate.
Yeah, that was not. I've had better, if I'm being quite honest. Yeah, wiped out on Saturday, and then just recovering. But yeah, not too bad. Thank you, mate.
So one of the worst types of pain, toothache. Joe, a little bit of heartache for you as well over the weekend. Obviously, Man United drawing with West Brom. Did it ruin your Saturday, Sunday?
It didn't ruin it, to be honest with you. It was a frustrating one, but United didn't really deserve to win the game, so I wasn't as frustrated as I have been other weeks, let's put it that way.
Well, Celtic did manage to win, turned it around against St Johnstone. Neither of you asked, really rude from you. But let's start with the talking point. And it is Liverpool conceding the title. Of course, Jurgen Klopp said as much after the game. We'll get onto that in a little bit. But let's discuss the fixture at the King Power first and foremost. The result that prompted this statement after the game. Because, I mean, for 70, 80 minutes, Liverpool very decent in this game. Controlled Leicester City, didn't they? Until Mo Salah combined for that wonderful goal on 67 minutes. Shout out to the Lisbon Lions. And, you know, that poor first half showing would have been no surprise to Liverpool fans who are yet to see their side. I think they're actually only seen their side score one goal in the opening 45 minutes in 2021. Only Burnley have a worse record in that regard. So, Joe, I want to get your thoughts on the game, firstly. Do you think the result has been slightly overblown because the manner in which they conceded it? Of course, individual catastrophe striking again. And I also want to ask you, if the plane for the Euros left tomorrow, would you take Harvey Barnes?
Right, well, let's answer the first one first. I thought, yeah, like you said, Liverpool very decent. I don't think it's been overblown because of the manner of the goals. I think it's been overblown because of the absolute catastrophe that has been 2021 really so far for Liverpool. Everything that could go wrong is going wrong for them. And I actually do feel quite sorry for Jurgen Klopp at this point. He looked pretty devastated after the game. Obviously, got a lot of stuff going on off the field as well. So I think for Liverpool, it's almost like now is just a time just to like bunker down as a unit, like let everybody chat outside and just kind of plod through, get to the end of the season and make sure you get into the top four. That has got to be the key factor this coming summer. Hit the top four because of the finances. It's going to help them sign players as well, and I still believe they'll get there. Your second question, Harvey Barnes. No, I wouldn't take Harvey Barnes to the Euros. He's definitely knocking on the door. But I was actually thinking about this earlier, and I thought to myself, I actually was thinking, like, England's like power positions, if you were using like American terminology, I would say a right back and left wing. They're probably our two strongest and deepest areas. And when you've got Sterling can play there, Sancho, Rashford, Grealish, I think probably being fifth choice in the left wing spot means he won't go, but he's definitely knocking on the door.
Yeah, he's got 3 more goal involvements than Phil Foden, 5 more than Mason Mount, but 5 fewer than Jack Grealish. And I think that does kind of intimate what sort of profile of player he's becoming. It is more of a second forward, I think, than an out-and-out winger. Obviously, the names I've just mentioned are a little bit trickier, you know, better dribblers, better passers. I suppose he's a little bit more limited in that regard. But I think
Southgate will definitely be considering him. In the same way, I don't know whether you heard him talking about Grealish, saying Grealish needs to put up the numbers Rashford, Sterling, Sancho are putting up. I think Harvey Barnes would need to be putting up the same numbers as Rashford, Raheem Sterling, Jadon Sancho and Jack Grealish now to be in contention for that second forward.
Super young though still as well, though, isn't he?
Really young, 23. I mean, Grealish has put up 16 goal contributions this term, so he is really setting the pace in that regard. Going back to the game, a bright spot for Liverpool, Gelab. Mo Salah got his 17th league goal of the season, and it was a wonderful bit of combination play, wasn't it, between him and Firmino? And he's now got 17 goals, like I said, in just 23 league starts. And people aren't really talking about him for the PFA Player of the Year. Do you think that Liverpool's season as a whole is sort of overshadowing his individual performance?
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to put it. I mean, at the moment it looks like Gundogan's kind of head on for that Player of the Year at the moment. He's absolutely killing it over the past few months. But Salah, as you said, 17 goals, 3 assists in the Prem, not to mention 3 goals in the Champions League as well. He has. In a maybe a poor season for Liverpool, he's still having a good season, and he continues to. He's still only 28 years old, kind of in his prime. And when people are talking about, Liverpool should consider maybe selling one of the front three, I mean, realistically, yes, Salah probably would get you the most money, but Salah is your star man out of those three. Every single game, he's kind of the one it relies upon. He did go through a little dip, and that's fair enough. I think all players do. It's just what happens during a season, especially a season like this. So yeah, he probably is being underrated to a decent degree. I mean, he's obviously not having the seasons that he has had, but that's because he set the bar so high. I think about that first season he was when he joined Liverpool, and he did that stuff with the gold record. It was a ridiculous season. That's kind of what everyone expected, and everyone's ever since then has always said, is he dropping off? It's not that he's dropping off. He's just not achieving the ridiculous heights that he was. He's still a very, very good player. And then considering he's playing to the level he is at the moment in a Liverpool squad that isn't performing as well as they have done over the past few seasons, is even more scary, to be honest, because he's playing to the same level, if not slightly better.
Yeah,
so
he's only 7th favourite at the moment. Imagine being 7th favourite as your league's top goal scorer. Bit of a disrespect.
That is quite rough, yeah. But I don't think he'll, unless things change around massively and he goes on a ridiculous scoring rate of 1 every game or so, I don't see him maybe winning it, but he should probably be much higher up in that conversation.
There we have it. Jella putting some praise on his name, but still it looks like it's going to elude him, despite the fact he's having a fantastic individual season. Talking of individuals, I was on 5 Live with Rory Jennings, and he said that Jamie Vardy doesn't get the credit that he deserves, and he should be in the same conversation as Mo Salah at current when it comes to great Premier League strikers. I mean, what did you make of his performance in this game? Pretty non-existent until the goals. So you might find it a little bit hard to open up on that. Or what about Leicester's performance as a whole, Jalab? Do you think that this was their game plan to strike late? Because it was pretty poor stuff for the opening hour at least.
Yeah, for sure. The first half it looked like Liverpool were going to absolutely slap them. If we're being quite honest, they came out in the second half and to a degree, they got kind of fortunate. I mean, the Alisson mistake again, or Kabak. I mean, it looks like the keepers, if I'm being quite honest. Kind of.
Mate, what's the keeper doing 30 yards from goal? Get back in.
Yeah,
net.
precisely.
Get back in net.
It's a gift. It's a gift to them, and then they're in the lead, and it's that's quite fortunate. Did they necessarily deserve to be? I'm not so sure. And even the defending on the third one's like ridiculous. It's kind of given to them again. But Leicester were good, especially in that second half. They were much better than they were in the first. I don't know what Rodgers told them, but he managed to kind of get their head out the gutter.
It was the classic Rodgers thing where it was like, at half-time, I told them we were being too passive and we needed to be more aggressive. That's literally his recipe to turn around any result. I mean,
mate,
Joe,
as well, just to interrupt there, James Maddison in his post-match, I thought was more revealing than Brendan Rodgers in his post-match when he said that tactically what he did was he shifted to a diamond tucked in narrower and attempted basically to use the lack of Fabinho and Henderson in there to allow them to counter-press a lot more, which was way more interesting than Brendan Rodgers' answer of like, we just told him just to, try harder. When in actual fact, he'd obviously told him to shift up shape and change tactics.
Yeah, and you can see that to an extent. I mean, James Maddison, I think he tried something ridiculous like 6 or 7 tackles in this game. Didn't quite land, but the counter-pressing, like you said, a little bit more evident in the second half. And I think maybe you see that in Tielemans and Didi's numbers, who put up, I think, 16 defensive actions between them. And they're a lot higher in the second half, weren't they? They shifted up a little bit, which took some of the pressure off Sionku and Evans, who were really under the cosh for the first 15-20 minutes, weren't they? Joe, a lot of Ndidi chat from Man United fans at full time. Would you still go in big for him? Let's open this up. Let's make it a larger question. Do you see Leicester, if they finish third, being raided once more, and do you back them to keep these players?
I don't think they'll be raided to the same extent. I think Wilfred Ndidi will obviously be high priority for a number of clubs, but his injury record might put a few people off at, say, around the £80 million mark, I think that might hold a few people back. So I'm not sure Leicester will lose a player this summer. I know that's kind of become their methodology, almost Dortmund style, hasn't it, to sell one star a summer in order to fund the signings of 3 or 4 slightly underrated players from across Europe. But I think they can probably keep hold of them and will keep hold of them this summer. I'd be surprised to see James Maddison leave, having signed that new contract. Vardy's obviously going nowhere. I don't think Barnes quite developed enough yet. He's doing really well, and I'd just stick with the development of Leicester. And Didi certainly almost going to stay. James Justin has now snapped his ACL, so poor bloke is definitely not going to get a move and would have probably gone to the Euros or at least been in contention. And Ricardo Pereira is coming back from an ACL injury, so I don't think, or I'd be very surprised anyway to see them get raided in the same way they have in past years.
It's like the home for broken toys, isn't it? But Brendan Rodgers getting the most out of them. Let's stay with the subject of Brendan Rodgers just for a moment, because I mean, this was an upset in terms of the form book. He's yet to, well, until the game on Saturday, Brendan Rodgers hadn't defeated Liverpool since he left the club in 2015. Admittedly, probably not played them all that often. And before this season, the Northern Irishman had never won a game against Klopp, Pep or Mourinho. And we've seen little tactical tweaks that have maybe given him the edge this campaign. Jelab, where do you rank him in terms of Premier League managers? Same question coming to you after. I appreciate you might need a little bit of time to think, but maybe let's go, would you put him top 6?
Ooh.
Top 6? 100%. What is that?
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to a harder question then. Does he make your top 4?
Okay, that's where you kind of start talking. I mean, obviously it's Pep, then Klopp, and then after that you're looking a bit more at maybe Carlo. Though when we get onto Everton later on, who knows about that actually. Tuchel, I guess, in terms of maybe not of what he's done at Chelsea at the moment, just because it's too soon, but maybe in past experiences is definitely up there. So I'd say maybe 5th. Like, he's a much better manager than he was when he was at Liverpool. He's improved massively that time at Celtic, and even the beginning of Leicester and the rough patches of last season. That's the worry for Leicester now, is can they push on and secure this top 4? They were really good last season, and then James Maddison got an injury and it went downhill. They then missed out on Champions League football. So that's the main thing now. If they can keep fit and deal with any injuries that they get. I mean, the James Justin injury is a bad one. If they can deal with that and continue, then he might even try and push into the top 4 of managers. I would say 5th right now. I'm just trying to think if I'm missing out any managers.
So you're saying kind of 5th, but maybe with the potential to move up depending on if they, if they don't bottle it in the second half of the season like they did last campaign, which maybe was a little bit unfair because they had injuries. But of course now 6 points above 4th place Liverpool, Joe. Same points haul as Manchester United in 2nd. Have you got a similar opinion of Brendan Rodgers?
Yeah, I'd probably have him 3rd or 4th, to be honest with you, at the moment. Obviously Pep and Klopp still out in a league of their own. But then, yeah, I think Rodgers, Carlo are definitely in that conversation as like 3rd, 4th for me. And I just think that Rodgers is that the correct way of saying it? Brendan Rodgers' tactics are... I just prefer to watch a Leicester team than an Everton team, to be honest with you. So that's the reason I'd have Rodgers ahead of him.
More attractive football, I guess, yeah, in terms of that sense. But the question now is like, we've never seen him kind of, I guess, get past this stumbling block of finishing strong, like last season.
Yeah, I think he probably deserves a huge amount of credit to be in this position still, because last season it was owing to a lack of depth, right, Jelab, and this season they've been contending with massive injuries. I look at the right hand side in this game, like a Martin or Brighton, you could drop them into a Championship side. No disrespect to either of them because they're good pros, good squad rotation options, but in terms of getting a result against Liverpool, who admittedly have injury worries of their own, like that right hand flank does not scream top 4, top 6, does it? There's
not at all.
Middling components of that side.
Not at all, 100%. I think I think Jamie Vardy as well has been out this season at times. So they've done much better, I guess, with handling the injuries than they did last season. It's really just this last bit, especially in a season as well like this, where you're playing so many games week in, week out. It's I'm pretty sure Chelsea play them on their 2nd or 3rd to last game of the season, which is going to be an interesting fixture, which could, I guess, determine possibly the top 4.
could be tasty right. What I want to finish this section on is asking you, pair. Obviously, they are about 30 points worse off than they were this time last season. Roy Keane has called them bad champions. Do we think they have been bad champions? Despite having to deal with an unprecedented sort of list of things. I will caveat this with they apparently, according to Footy Labs, which is a really fun little website, they do have the second easiest run-in, so things might be a bit tighter come the end.
There's no such thing as an easy run-in though this season. There's genuinely no such thing as an easy run-in.
Anyone can beat anyone.
But teams are dropping as many points against relegation candidates as they are against rivals, I think.
Go on, what do you think? Bad champions or not, Joe?
I think they have been bad champions. Yeah, I don't think they've been the worst champions ever, as I've seen some people online say. I think that's a ridiculous statement. There's obviously much worse champions than this Liverpool side, but they're undeniably 30 points worse off than they were last stage. And even if you said that last season they were unbelievable, which they absolutely were, I think 30 points is a massive disappointment. They've obviously got huge excuses for this because of the Van Dijk injury, the Gomez injury, massive problems. But I think it's undeniable that they've been poor champions this year. And I think Klopp would probably admit that he thinks this has been a poor season by his and Liverpool's standards.
For sure. I mean, the video of him, bless him, after the match being like, do you concede the title? It was heartbreaking, no matter who you support, if we're being quite honest. I think Joe's right. I mean, they have every excuse in the book when all of your starting centre backs and your sub centre backs are out, and you have to go and buy from the lower leagues and hope for and get a defender in from a basically relegated Schalke side. You're kind of admitting defeat already. So yeah, I think maybe they are bad champions in terms of the statistically and how much they're performing worse off than they did last season. But when you look at it with context, it doesn't. It's understandable.
Exactly.
Not many sides would have been able to deal with that. Like if we look at say the United sides of great, would they have been able to deal with Vidic, Rio Ferdinand, all dropping out some of the other starting players? Imagine. I mean, probably would have, but imagine someone like Roy Keane and Fletcher playing centre back. Like it would have been mental. It would have been mental.
And think about when people say they're the worst champions in Premier League history. Think about how bad that Chelsea team was. Was it 15-16 when Jose got sacked, or the Liverpool or the Leicester team that obviously miraculously won the Premier League. The next season they finished 49 points worse off. So
got it rated as well.
I mean, to call them the worst champions in Premier League history is massive disrespect. But they have had a bad season by their admittedly incredibly high standards.
Yeah, and a lot of teams are having bad seasons, right? Traditionally big teams.
Yeah.
So I still think they've probably been the third or fourth best team in the Premier League, but the drop-off has been substantial because they set such high standards. I don't think they deserve to be probably anywhere near the title at the moment, and they're 13 points off Manchester City, aren't they? And that did prompt Klopp to say this.
No, I don't think we can close that gap this year, to be honest. We have to win football games, and big parts of our football was today again really, really good. We have to do it more consistent. We have to avoid mistakes. We have to avoid misunderstanding. We cannot avoid mistakes of VAR or stuff like this, but all the rest, which is in our hands, we have to avoid. Today in two situations we didn't do that. That's why they could score 2 goals.
Our first one has then come from @wavy_A, and it is the Gooners. And it was quite an exciting game, wasn't it? At the Emirates, beating Leeds United 4-2 with Aubameyang scoring his first Arsenal hat-trick. He's back amongst the goals, the Gabonese striker. He now has 8 in 18 starts, so slowly recovering from that really poor first half to the season. Joe, what caught your eye in this game from an Arsenal perspective?
I mean, from an Arsenal perspective, Bukayo Saka, as he does every game, probably the best player on the pitch, alongside Phil Foden, the best youngster in the Premier League, really, by a distance, I think, this season. Pedro Neto, obviously, also having an outstanding season. We're not going to touch on him, but how amazing was his goal against Southampton?
If he's not bought in the summer,
absolutely ridiculous goal.
You've definitely got shares in him on Football Index.
I have. I actually wish I did, because he is just absurd. But no, in terms of Arsenal, I thought Bukayo Saka, Ødegaard started, and he definitely popped some nice tidy balls around and stuff like that, but didn't really I wouldn't say he had a massive impact. I think that Emile Smith-Rowe and Bukayo Saka partnership is so exciting if you're an Arsenal fan. I just love watching Bukayo Saka play, man. He's absolutely exceptional. So
Did he mean
I'd say
that
Saka.
Smith-Rowe?
Well, Emile Smith-Rowe, absolutely no chance.
I think he
100% opens his body up to shoot. In no world does he mean it. But yeah, how bad were Leeds? I just thought Leeds were awful yesterday.
In the first half.
Man, that was such a Leeds performance. Like,
I agree with
the exact same against United. It was like I've seen that Leeds performance so many times this season. So easy just to slice through them.
I agree with Jelab, actually. I think the second half, they were actually decent. And if Melier doesn't have that howler, it's a very, very nervy last 10, Zach.
Yeah, indeed. And like, bless him, because he's only 20 years old, and I think he's got a really bright future ahead of him. So I'm sure, and he saved them at points this season as well. So I'm sure it's kind of one for one and one for the other. But yeah, no, they in the second half were much better, and actually they had opportunities as well to score, even in the last couple of like dying moments of the game, and it would have been very much a different game if Melier hadn't conceded that sloppy goal. I mean, but then also that's kind of the way it's the risk you take, right? The way Leeds play and the way Bielsa wants to play football it's very Barcelona-esque of like, look, we die by the sword. If this is how we play, he straight after that mistake, he'll continue to keep trying like that. It's what happens. But yeah, it was an unfortunate. I think it was just that one goal far. It was one goal too far for them to maybe believe properly that we can get back into this. And even at 4-2, it just felt maybe a little bit too far away from them to reach. But they were better in the second half. I thought Arsenal had dropped off a bit in the second half, especially when Willian came on. He at the moment, watching him play for Arsenal, I feel like, I had to deal with it last season and the years before that. But I feel for the Arsenal guys out there,
Chalab, you must be inside quite smug, mate, because the amount of Arsenal fans that when they signed Willian were giving Chelsea fans stick as, we signed your best player on a free, and now swiveled 180 degrees is hilarious.
Willian has always had the ability to become great. Just never did. Just never quite made it. And there was never. If you look back at his seasons and like stats on his seasons, there's never a season you go, wow, he was brilliant this season. Like he was always half decent, but never pushed on. And now he's in his 30s, earning £100,000 a week for Arsenal for 3 years. Like it's an awful deal.
It's even more than that. I don't know if that's like before
possibly,
tax,
yeah.
after tax. I've seen like 220, but
no way.
Well,
I
think
not.
from what I heard, the whole reason he joined Arsenal was because they offered him £100,000 a week and he wanted to stay in London. Because his kids, like he's a British citizen now. Like his kids go to school in London and everything, which is fair enough for him. But I mean, like that is not like, considering Arsenal's position, they were winning here, so it was okay. But I mean, if you're losing a game and you look to the bench and it's Willian that's coming on at the moment, it isn't very pleasing to the eyes, and I'm sure the fans, from what I see on Twitter and that, aren't too happy about it. But Leeds, if they perform like they did in the second half in the first half, then it could have been a completely different game. But alas.
Right, thank you for talking there, because I've just pulled up the details of the Willian deal, and it's a basic of 100k. But because he's penned a 3-year deal, the 250k figure, it's worked that out based on the large signing on fee he was paid, as well as bonuses.
Wow.
So it could average out to upwards of 220, 250. But
oh my days.
Yeah, I don't want to beat up on him too much. He did take the pace out of the attack a little bit, but that's probably to be expected when you've got 3 sprightly young kind of press-resistant players, really giving Leeds a hard time throughout the game. For Sabias was decent, for Xhaka was decent. But yeah, Leeds have now scored 14, conceded 42 in just 23 Premier League games. And I absolutely love it. Don't want them to change. And anyone that thinks they're like, gung-ho and they should rein it in, doesn't love the game, in my opinion. Anyway, safe to say that Arteta was pleased with his side, sounding out Aubameyang and Odegaard for special praise.
Yeah, he's been training really good. He wants to get back. He wants to help the team. And I could see that this week. I had a feeling to put him as a 9 today, and he's done the job.
And what about Odegaard as well? First start, first sort of real run in an Arsenal shirt?
Big credit to him to play the first Premier League start against Leeds after not playing a lot of football in the last 3 months. Ran the way he did, how comfortable and creative he was on the ball, and the personality that he showed on the game, it was great.
Our losers this week then are Everton, and this comes from Vasi Detelenara 8. And, Southampton very lucky to avoid this after 6 consecutive defeats.
Very
However, Vassy wanted Fulham as winners. And rightly so, because we've beat up on them this season as well. So credit where credit's due. We've snuck them in through the back door as the Cottagers claim their first ever away victory versus Everton in the Premier League thanks to a Josh Maja double. Now, Zach, they're only 7 points off Newcastle. I was trying to find a narrative here. This is the most interesting one I could dig out. Who would you rather stayed in the Premier League? Scott Parker's Fulham outfit, Steve Bruce's Newcastle.
I mean, the answer's pretty obvious, isn't it? Probably Fulham. They play much more attractive football, I guess, and it's kind of nice to see them because at the beginning of the season, God, they looked dire. They looked really bad, and it was kind of going to feel like it was going to be a bit Norwich-esque, where they played nice football, but they were going to get relegated, if we're being quite honest. Whereas now they've come good, and they've actually had some ridiculous results against strong opposition as well. And so 7 points isn't far, especially if Chelsea play Newcastle today. Predicted Chelsea to win. Who knows what happens with Chelsea at the moment this season? But also with Callum Wilson now out for Newcastle, things could be quite positive for Fulham to look at. And it's games like this where I guess if you looked at the beginning of the season or even recently with the way Everton have played and taken results and had good games against people, it might have been a game that maybe the Fulham fan would have looked at and say, okay, we're not going to take a point, or we were lucky if we take a point from here. So to take all 3 is really, really good. And I'm not too sure who their future games are, but it's definitely going to be an interesting end to the season down there for sure. I think West Brom, I think Sheffield United is just too little too late, but that last position could be very interesting, especially between Fulham and Newcastle. It'd be interesting. I'm not too sure. They still yet to play each other as well for the end of the season.
I don't know. They're scrapping it out pretty much with like Burnley, Newcastle, Brighton are still in there.
Mate, Fulham Newcastle is the last game of the season.
Whoa! Well, there you go. That could be the all decider. That could be ridiculous.
Everyone tuning in. Oof. Right. I mean, Joe, this was a bit of a get out clause for Liverpool, wasn't it? Because Everton could have gone level on points had they won this game, like everyone anticipated. So where did it actually go wrong for the home side here?
Well, I didn't watch the full match. To be honest with you, so I couldn't tell you exactly where it went wrong. But Everton are just so up and down this season, aren't they? And like the fans get so frustrated, and kind of rightly so. But from what I saw, anyway, I was pretty impressed by the amount of chances Fulham created, and slightly worried if I was Everton because they could have scored 3 or 4. And I know that Josh Maja kind of scored 2 tap-ins, some great movement for the first one, but Adeloma Lookman, the man that Everton let go, like from what I saw, looked like the best player on the pitch, or at least a contender for the best player on the pitch. So coming back to bite him in a pretty big way.
Yeah. And we said that at the time as well, didn't we? We said that was weird, letting him go at the time.
Yeah. And this was a bit of a chance, wasn't it, for Everton to kind of gain some ground on Liverpool. I know it's the Merseyside derby this coming weekend, so it would have set them on the right path. But, they can score 5 against Spurs and then not score against Fulham. It sums this season up pretty well, doesn't it? I don't think any game there should be a favourite, because I think like the bottom half teams are taking just as many points off the top half teams as like when they play each other. And even though Fulham's run on paper is obviously absolutely wretched, coming up when they play Liverpool, Man City, Villa, Arsenal, Chelsea, Man United, I think never count them out, because there's so many upsets this season that they could genuinely do it now that Newcastle have lost Wilson.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the number is pretty unforgiving of Everton's performance. Outshot by Fulham. They only took 4 shots inside Fulham's box, 3 of which from 89 minutes onwards as they sort of threw the kitchen sink at it. And no key passes from Digne. And when the Frenchman struggles, they tend to struggle, don't they, from a creative sense.
Is Calvert-Lewin out as well? Is he still injured? Because I remember he came off against Spurs, didn't he?
James Rodriguez played up front in this game.
Yeah, well that's worrying.
Or at least set up there.
With no Calvert-Lewin, that is worrying for the future for them.
I think they played like a 4-3-1-2. Anyway, I'm done talking about Everton. There were pants in this game. Let's move on to moment of the weekend. You two, as is the case normally, vote for your favourite one. I shall read them out now. At Ibra 1027 was Gundogan sending Davinson Sanchez back to Colombia.
I felt so bad for Sanchez.
El Shawari 92s was Doogie's Valentine's Day tweet.
Oh, that's it. No matter what any of the other ones are, Doogie's Valentine's tweet is so good.
And we also have Hoskuldar Agutson, whose team Victor and Ichibi are the first in Football Daily fans their Premier Fantasy League, and he's second in the whole world.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
Unreal.
Ridiculous.
So there's some brilliant contenders. I'm going to start with you, Joe, because you're a little bit more silent there. I think I know where Zach's loyalty lies.
Zach's going to go Doogie. So I'll go for the Davinson Sanchez incident then, because Manchester City, they were a joy to watch in that game, weren't they? And Tottenham were terrible. They really were terrible. Like, there's no other word to say. But Manchester City, it was like a most joyful performance, genuinely. I enjoyed watching every minute of the way they played football on the weekend. And Ilkay Gundogan, it's just such a shame he came off injured. I really hope it's not a serious one, because his form is something to behold. Is that 11 in 11 or something like that, or 10 in 10? Now, I just cannot believe his evolution into this kind of false 9 position that Pep's playing in. With KDB to come back next week, Man City just hitting form at the perfect time. I would be seriously nervous about playing them in the Champions League. I think they are probably favourites to win that competition right now. They're going to win the Premier League. Don't write them off. Don't write them off for the treble.
Yeah, I don't think that's an unreasonable point at all. I mean,
they still in the FA Cup?
Yeah, they've got a quarter-final against
Everton.
Everton.
They could do the quad.
I mean, they've got Gladbach in the Champions
quarterfinals.
League, Everton in the quarterfinals. They've not trailed for a single minute in their last 15 games. Like, it's not unreasonable to expect them to.
The team that might beat them is somebody like Atletico Madrid. Do you know what I mean? That's just going to come in and be dogged.
Hey,
like,
don't you worry about them, mate. We've got them covered. Don't you worry about that.
Oh, are you playing them in the Champo?
Yeah, we got them next week. Don't you worry.
Right,
It'll be, easy enough.
I'm going to go for. Zach, do we need to establish what you're going for?
Well, if you pick the other guy, then I'm 100% taking Doogie. Oh my god, it's one of the best. Please play it on screen now. Oh my god.
Happy Valentine's Day.
I woke up on Sunday and it was so good to see. It was so good.
It was just so unexpected. Really good work from Dukes. I'll go for Mr. Agutson. Shout out for representing the FD massive in the world rankings. Respect.
Big shout out.
You should probably have one of our jobs. That is it for this week. Guys, have we got anything to plug, Joe?
You can go and watch We Need to Talk. I kind of ranked the PFA Player of the Year contenders. I know that Zach was talking about Mo Salah moving up the list there, and I did agree with him. But equally, wouldn't have him in my top 3 this season. You can find out who my top 3 were on We Need to Talk.
Nice. Jalab?
Check us out on Snapchat. If you go over to Snapchat, type in Football Daily in the search bar, and then you can watch every single one of our stories, which is every single day, and subscribe to it.
Yeah, I also did a one-on-one on Eden Hazard. We brought that show back for the first time in a while, so go and check that out on Euro Football Daily. It came out Sunday. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Bye.